for the battered but proud people of the Empire State. From the financial and entertainment epicenter of New York City.
As you saw, I got it all set up.
Of upstate, which once bustled with
You're welcome.
mining and farming. We all know from inspiration, history, and nature, we deserve a return to the success and growth of generations past. A birthright being squandered by corruption in Albany, and the depredations of an insecure, scheming mountebank posing as governor, who loathes both us and himself. As liberty beckoned to enslaved peoples behind the Iron Curtain via American broadcasts after World War II, we now say, believe, rise, and join us. Welcome to Radio Free New York.
Hey guys, welcome to Radio Free New York. I'm your host, Andrew Hollister, and I'm finally back in the WYSL studio.
It's good to be home again.
Yeah. No, it almost felt a little strange coming out here. I was like, how do I do this again? Where do I go?
Where's that place? I can't remember how to get there.
Yeah. So it's real good to be here in studio with Bob Savage.
Thank you.
And the ride wasn't so bad, but man, the weather got all cold on us again. That's no fun.
Let me tell you, yesterday I was walking around the streets of New York. I was down in Manhattan. It was 72 degrees. It was like late June.
Yeah. I mean,
shirt sleeve. I was actually sweating a little bit because I had a long sleeve shirt on. Nice.
Yeah. I don't know. The weather is just doing that thing that it does up here, where it goes warm, goes cold, So in addition to how cold today is the day that people have to mail in their tax money if they haven't.
That'll make you chilly.
Yeah. So as if it wasn't cold enough, when you look at what you're paying in taxes. And here's the thing. I know a lot of folks, they get a refund, which I haven't done in years. And we've spent a couple shows talking about it. So if you haven't caught that show, or you aren't aware of why it's such a bad idea to get a tax refund, jump on YouTube, go search Andrew C. Hollister. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel there, because that helps us get the information out. And then go ahead and search for the podcast, if you will, that talks about income tax and why you should just never get a refund. And then there is another episode where I talk about what you can do with that money throughout the year, how to invest it, how to gain some interest off of it. That's what I've been doing, and it's just better. Chances are very, very good that if you listen to this show, you can spend your money better than the government can, even if you don't listen to the show. But I would say our average listener is fairly intelligent. That's one of the reasons you listen to the show. Chances are really good you can spend your money way better than the government. There's no reason at all to be giving the government an interest-free loan, and that's what you do when you get a tax refund.
Yeah, Ronald Reagan said, he made a famous statement about, if everybody just wrote a check for their taxes at the end of the year, you'd see an entirely different attitude about taxation.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, because the way it's done now, it's kind of, I don't want to say it's sneaky, but you don't really notice it. You get your direct deposit. How many people actually look at their pay stub or their W-2? They don't really look at, oh, wow, I lost how much money this week in taxes? I worked all these hours. And, the one thing I love doing with friends, this is actually kind of like probably considered cruel and unusual punishment, but I'll sit down with them and I'll help them calculate what they make hourly after taxes, because everybody looks at, $15 an hour, $20 an hour. I'm like, well, let's put the taxes in here. Let's look at that. What do you really make an hour after you've paid your taxes? And it's just downright depressing. It is.
Yeah, our tax burden has increased once again, and of course, in New York State, this is no comparison. I mean, we have the highest taxes in the state.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, you can go anywhere else in the nation and you're going to be better off than you are in New York, which is why so many people have up and left the state. I mean, it's just a matter of fact. So I want to welcome you guys all to the show. Sorry, I went on a little rant there about taxes. Today's show is going to be a topic that I don't know if we've actually personally discussed. I know Kevin Wilson, Kevin the Libertarian, when he co-hosted the show or guest hosted the show for me, marijuana and cannabis came up. I was looking through, and I don't know that we've ever had a talk about it on Radio Free New York.
Not that I remember.
Yeah, so I figured today we would talk about marijuana and cannabis, and kind of hit some of the highlights, the lowlights, some of the information, because it's becoming a really, really hot topic, especially in terms of New York City just passed, I think, a law saying that employers can no longer test for marijuana as part of pre-screening and job interviews. And not just marijuana, I think it was any drug. Like, you're just not allowed to do it anymore. And in New York in general, we're talking about the possibility of making marijuana recreational in June, which it was supposed to be a part of this budget. Now it got pushed off. It'll be in June. So I figured we'd just talk about a whole bunch of things because, I see a lot of information out there. Some of it's just really old information. Some of it is actually good, legitimate information. And then some of it's just like way off, kind of maybe somebody said it once and somebody repeated it and it didn't happen to be true at all. So I figured we just cover all of it because I think in terms of what's being discussed now, it probably would be U.S. immigration policy is number one. The border, the Mexican border, the wall. Then my guess is marijuana is probably the second hottest topic, and then I think abortion and Planned Parenthood is the third. But maybe they switch. I don't know. It seems week by week they seem to be
hard to imagine. Pot would be killing ahead of abortion and Planned Parenthood.
I think I suppose
it's possible.
Yeah, I think if you were to look at New York, I think other states, they're not, so worried about certain things. But in New York, it seems to be that marijuana and cannabis seem to be pretty high up on the trends, if you look at the trends. So before we dive into this here, and Bob, you're welcome to jump in at any time and say if you feel the same or not. I don't actually have a dog in this fight as far as marijuana goes.
You don't?
No, okay. I don't. No. So I've never personally used any cannabis product ever. If I have, I was not aware of it. But I've never even smoked a cigarette before. So as far as like that sort of things, I don't care. That's not a path I ever went down in my life. And if somebody else has, that's fine. I don't care either. I don't have a family member or a loved one who needs medical marijuana to get through their pain or an illness. I don't personally have an illness that could potentially help. And I don't own a farm or a grow plot or anything like that. And on the flip side, I've never had a family member who is maybe injured by somebody who is maybe on some sort of recreational drug, or killed in a car accident or anything like that. So I haven't had any level of positive or negative experience one way or another. And so I put that out there because that might be important as we talk about this, to know that I have no ties to it, either positive or negative, which I hope will help eliminate some biases, but then some bias is good too. And so I'm going to ask you guys who are listening to the show here to definitely comment in, definitely call in if you guys have stuff to contribute to this conversation, because I think that it might maybe take up the whole show. We'll see how far it goes. So that number is 585-346-3000. Once again, it's 585-346-3000. And if you're calling in from outside of the 585 area code, you can call in at 866-552-1009. Once again, that's 866-552-1009. So we're going to jump into that. But before we do, I actually had a visitor at the station today. I want to give them a shout out. Todd came down here all the way from Syracuse to pop in and just say hello. And I know he's listening to the show right now.
Second time in a couple of weeks.
Yeah. So he came in, I think it was last Friday maybe, or last Monday. He thought I was going to be in studio. I wasn't. I was at home with my wife when she was going through her tonsil removal, and he drove all the way down. So I mean, huge shout out to Todd to make that trip not once but twice. Larry Sharp is in town too. He's kind of bumping around in some of the radio stations, so he came down to see Larry as well. And that's some dedication there. That's awesome. So Todd, thank you so much for coming and visiting me.
Two rides from Syracuse to come over and see us. Well, thank you, Todd. We appreciate you listening. He's an online listener to us. So
no, that's great. And that actually brings up a good point too. If you can't catch the show live, you can always go to the YouTube channel or the Facebook page, and you can watch all of the Radio Free New York episodes. You can even see my shining smile if you want. So, guys, we're going to take a real quick break here, and when we come back, we're going to start talking about marijuana, cannabis, hemp, pot, all that stuff. All right? We'll be back here on Radio Free New York.
Your business relies on computers and technology to operate. Slow, unreliable networks and servers can cause unplanned downtime and affect your bottom line. The experts at Simple Tech Innovations are here to help. Their preventative maintenance program ensures that your computers and network are kept up to date and monitored for any issues, keeping your business running smoothly. They also help clients achieve HIPAA, PCI, and New York State cybersecurity compliance to keep your network safe and secure. Whatever your business IT needs are, Simple Tech Innovations should be your first call. They've won the Best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. Call them today for a free consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. Simple Tech Innovations.
Everyone is talking about residual income as a retirement plan. Do you have a residual income plan in place? If not, come to our free seminar on April 25th in Rochester to learn about local residual income opportunities. Go to startrochester.com to sign up for our free seminar. No experience is necessary. Go to startrochester.com and sign up for our free no-obligation seminar. Space is limited to the first 40 people, so sign up now before it fills up. StartRochester.com.
Why do businesses choose to move their website from Wix and Squarespace to Simple Tech Innovations? Maybe it's their excellent customer service or attention to detail. Maybe it's their ability to give a truly customized solution. Or perhaps they just like the fact that Simple Tech is a local small business that builds great relationships with its clients. Whatever the reason may be, you can rest assured knowing that the local team at Simple Tech has your best interest in mind when building or updating your website. They're hands-on and love helping customers achieve their goals. But
last spot
for it, they've won the Best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. If your website doesn't match your dreams or isn't achieving your goals, give the professionals at Simple Tech Innovations a call today for a consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. Simple Tech Innovations.
You're listening to Radio Free New York on the WYSL stations.
All right, guys, welcome back to Radio Free New York. I'm your host, Andrew Hollister, and I'm here in the WYSL studio with Bob Savage.
hello, all.
So as I teased in the first segment, we're going to talk a little bit about marijuana and specific to New York State. I think it's important for people to know just the facts, where it is, where it isn't. And then I wanted to address some of the discussion I see online about marijuana and cannabis and hemp products because there's some good information that I think is worth talking about. And then there's other information that sometimes people just don't know. So I think it's important to just share this information so that everybody can be as educated as possible. And so when it comes up in discussion, we can really have like good, fulfilling discussion that's got a lot of just good information in it. So the first thing that I want to talk about, and the reason I want to talk about this specifically is because I've been spending the last, I think, 3.5 weeks interviewing candidates who want to run for office, whether that's, a county level office, a town level office. Some are multi-county seats. I don't think that there's no state positions that we've interviewed for. I don't think there's any state positions open for election. But one of the things that inevitably comes up is marijuana, because it's been talked about for the budget. It's been talked about for, June, where recreational marijuana would be legalized. And as these discussions come up, some of the questions are, well, how would you handle this in your town or your county? Is your county going to opt out? Is your town going to opt out? What is your plan? What do you think? And inevitably, a lot of candidates will say, well, I totally support medical marijuana. I would vote yes for that. Which to me kind of shows that they haven't really followed the issue. And the reason is medical marijuana has been legal in New York for quite some time now.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like the first issue is it's so restricted, it's so hard to get a hold of that people don't even know it exists. And so I wanted to do a little bit of just fact finding for you guys, because I wanted to see how much it has or hasn't expanded here in New York State. So as you might expect, the regulations on medical marijuana are immense. I mean, you can get heavy drugs from your doctor much, much easier than you can get medical marijuana. We're talking things like, you've got kind of like your lower end stuff like Vicodin and Oxycodone and stuff like that. But you can go to the hospital and you can get Dilaudid, if you need it, that's
a very powerful hypnotic drug.
Yeah. Versus, say you ran out of your prescription of medical marijuana, you can't get that at the hospital.
Well, they won't administer it at the hospital because it's still a violation of federal law.
Yeah, and that's another issue that we'll definitely discuss, is the idea that even though states are legalizing it, it's still federally illegal, which rules into some issues with the like firearms purchase. And when you fill out the form to purchase a firearm, there's actually a question there about if you use marijuana or not. Now, ironically, there's no question about do you use psychotropic drugs or not, and that sort of thing. So it's interesting. So medical marijuana is legal in New York State. It has been for some time, but a lot of people don't know because there's only 10 farms allowed in New York State to grow it. People were told they could apply to become a farm. And I actually met somebody last year when we were talking about this. He said that him and 12 of his buddies, they were all small farmers. They actually pooled together all the money to apply so that they could actually create local jobs farming marijuana for medical use. And when they went to apply in Albany, the lady said, I can't take your money from you. And they said, why? She said, listen, it's already been decided who's going to do this. We're taking applications, but she saw that these were, just your average Joe guys who were scraping this money together in hopes to better their family.
Isn't this charming?
Yep. And she said, I can't take your money. You're not going to get it. It's already been decided.
So basically, Andy Cuomo handpicks who gets the.
Yep.
Yeah. It's basically a franchise, and it's exclusive. It's like an indulgence. It's handed down by the Pope.
Yeah. And that's exactly it. So that's the first issue. Is it's Cuomo's buddies getting to do this. Cuomo's buddies. Yeah, right. As if we shouldn't see that coming. So there's only 10 farms handpicked by Cuomo that can farm medical marijuana in New York State. There's a total of 36 dispensaries, which is actually higher than I thought it was going to be. I was kind of thinking that it would be less than 20, but you can actually go to health.ny.gov and they actually list out the 10 farms that are allowed to farm it. and then the dispensaries.
Give the locations for those?
No. They'll give the locations
secret locations,
of the
right?
dispensary. They'll tell you what county they're in, but they won't give you the address of the farm
For obvious reasons.
So yeah, absolutely. So that to me was interesting. But if you go to health.ny.gov, you can actually find a fair amount of information. You can see all 34 dispensaries. You can see the companies that are allowed to farm. Some of them, their names seem kind of shady to me. Like somebody just really quickly hacked together an LLC so that they could do this, which really plays into the, hey, Cuomo said we can do this. Quick, get an LLC together real quick. We're going to be the only ones in New York, us and 9 other people.
Remember the Startup New York ads where we had these wonderful companies advertising on TV spots saying they had moved to New York State because of, quote, the climate. Get it? Because everybody complains about what the weather's like here. Mm-hmm. But we're talking about the business climate. And they looked into the credentials of some of these people, and like one of the major companies that had relocated to New York from Colorado was operating out of an apartment complex.
Sure. Yeah, like some guy moved there and just moved the address or something.
So yeah. I think there's a similar MO going on.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, and that's the other thing is, who knows if these were even local farms or not? These could have been buddies from outside of New York even who just, we got an address here now, send us your money. So no surprises there. But the one thing that I really want to share with you guys is just, first off, just knowing that medical marijuana exists in New York. And it's, there's, I think, 3 different ways to take it. I think there's a cream, there's kind of like a capsule, and then I don't know that you can smoke it or not for medical marijuana.
No, you cannot. You're not allowed.
It's a vapor. That's what it is.
Right. You have to use a specialized vaporizer, which is very expensive to buy, by the way. Mm-hmm. And one of the dispensaries is up near the old Kodak Park. It's on Ridge Road, close to the theater on the Ridge. And I walked by that medical dispensary when we went to go see Mark Stein and Dennis Miller when they were here.
Yep.
Last month. And I don't know. To me, it looks to me like the place is empty. I don't know. Yeah, I'm not. Now listen, I'm not saying that. I'm not defaming them. I'm not saying that they're out of business, but it doesn't look. Doesn't look like it's being used.
Yeah, I think Monroe County has 2 or 3 dispensaries, which is. I wonder if I think I've actually got a map.
One of them is Columbia Care. I think that's the one that's up on Ridge Road.
Let me see. I think I've got a map of the dispensaries. Yeah. Okay, so I've got a map here of the dispensaries, and if you look. The majority of them are downstate. I would say probably like of the 34, more than 20 are downstate. You've got Queens, the Bronx, Long Island, all of that. Then you've got, looks like maybe 1.5 in the North Country, a couple in Syracuse, a couple in Rochester, a few in Buffalo. Looks like a couple in Albany, and maybe 1 in Binghamton.
Yeah. Again, crony capital. I'm sure that these are people who are politically connected to Cuomo.
Oh yeah, there's no doubt about it. I mean, it's not like Cuomo said, "Oh, a mom and pop shop? Here, let me help you." It's like, "Oh, you donated how much to my campaign? Let me hook you up with a license."
Like the tax-free zones around the colleges.
Yeah.
Which again were handpicked by the executive branch.
Yeah. And I've actually met just a handful of people who have a medical marijuana card. And this is, I'm talking last year, Larry and I traveled the whole state and we met a handful of people. And they said it is really hard. It is really hard to qualify, really hard to get it. And once you do, they said you sign all this paperwork. They're not allowed to purchase firearms anymore. They're not allowed XYZ ABC anymore.
Oh, I see. You have to give up your constitutional rights to get the dope from the dope. Okay.
Yeah. So it's, to me, I look at this and go, for most people, it's not actually legalized. They can say, "Oh yeah, medical marijuana in New York State's legal," but it's not accessible to the people who need it. And if it is accessible to them, it's very hard, and you have to give up a lot to get it. If, say, you go to a cancer patient, you say you can have chemo, you just can't have your firearms. people would be outraged by that, but since marijuana has this stigma, some people were kind of like, oh yeah, that's fine, whatever. To me, it feels like the stigma created in society, and it may be justified. Like I said, I'm not super close to the issue personally. Could be justified, but we're talking about having people give up their rights for medical treatment. And don't get me wrong, when it comes to the time of like psychotropic drugs that have been proven, that when somebody's on this, they may become a harm to themselves or others. There's an argument to be made there, but it shouldn't be permanent.
Well, there's an argument to be made against marijuana in that regard. First of all, it's important to understand that the pot that's being used for medical pot now is not like the marijuana that we smoked in the 1960s. And unlike you, Andrew, I have smoked pot. I haven't done it in a long time. Long time. Yeah. But it's what's out there today is, a multiple of the strength of what was used to be available, which really gives me pause, because I remember how strong some of that stuff used to be. And so I don't know. And then you get into the issue that I've talked to medical practitioners, and there's a big divide about whether this is really necessary,
Sure.
Because there's all kinds of analgesics and painkillers and things that are available, and they think that the marijuana, the downside outweighs the upside.
Yeah. So, guys, we're going to take a real quick break here. When we come back from the break, we're going to talk about recreational marijuana and what that might or might not look like here in New York State. We'll be back here on Radio Free New York.
You're listening to the voice of liberty. WYSL. AM 1040 Avon, Rochester, FM 92.1 Rochester, FM 95.5 Spencerport, and WYSL1040.com everywhere.
Why do businesses choose to move their website from Wix and Squarespace to SimpleTech Innovations? Maybe it's their excellent customer service or attention to detail. Maybe it's their ability to give a truly customized solution. Or perhaps they just like the fact that SimpleTech is a local small business that builds great relationships with its clients. Whatever the reason may be, you can rest assured knowing that the local team at SimpleTech has your best interest in mind when building or updating your website. They're hands-on and love helping customers achieve their goals. But don't take my word for it. They've won the best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. If your website doesn't match your dreams or isn't achieving your goals, give the professionals at SimpleTech Innovations a call today for a consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. SimpleTech Innovations.
Everyone is talking about residual income as a retirement plan. Do you have a residual income plan in place? If not, come to our free seminar on April 25th in Rochester to learn about local residual income opportunities. Go to startrochester.com to sign up for our free seminar. No experience is necessary. Go to startrochester.com and sign up for our free, no-obligation seminar. Space is limited to the first 40 people, so sign up now before it fills up. StartRochester.com.
Your business relies on computers and technology to operate. Slow, unreliable networks and servers can cause unplanned downtime and affect your bottom line. The experts at SimpleTech Innovations are here to help. Their preventative maintenance program ensures that your computers and network are kept up to date and monitored for any issues, keeping your business running smoothly. They also help clients achieve HIPAA, PCI, and New York State cybersecurity compliance to keep your network safe and secure. Whatever your business IT needs are, SimpleTech Innovations should be your first call. They've won the best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+
Okay, coming your way.
Bureau rating. Call them today for a free consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. SimpleTech Innovations.
Radio Free New York on WYSL. AM 1040, FM 92.1, and FM 95.5 West.
All right, right, guys, welcome back to Radio Free New York. I'm your host, Andrew Hollister. Looking through the social media sites here, want to welcome a few of you guys to the show. Welcome Dan and Jason and Craig and Nate and Mike and Sarah. Guys, thank you so much for joining us. And of course, our people on YouTube and Twitter. I can't see your guys' names, but thank you guys so much. And our people listening on the airwaves, on the WYSL airwaves. Love to have you guys. Please feel free to call into the show at any point with feedback, questions, or leave them in the comments. I'll check the comments too. That number is 585-346-3000. That's 346-3000. Or if you're out of the area, 866-552-1009. Once again, that's 866-552-1009. And so one of the things that somebody's commenting in here is, of course, like, once again, Cuomo picks and chooses and helps his buddies, and this is just the pay to play environment here in New York. And the sad thing is, they just keep getting away with it and keep getting away with it and keep getting away with it, and it's coming to the point where they don't even really try to hide it so much anymore. It's just kind of an accepted fact. So yeah, I've got a big issue with that. So we're talking a little bit about medical marijuana here and about the fact that it's already legalized in New York State, but it's so difficult to get your hands on. It's almost not available. And Bob had also brought up the fact that some medical professionals don't think that medical marijuana is really that good. That there's other alternative drugs, and maybe they work better or they're more available. All those things are probably true. I don't know enough about that piece of it. I know that I've seen some people, and I haven't truly dug so deep into this part. I've seen people who have said that it's been like a miracle for them. Now, when I was on the campaign last year, I got to meet all sorts of people from all places, and I forget, we went to like a festival. I forget what it was called. It was called a harvest festival, and there was a heavy presence there of people who were big proponents of marijuana, and I met some people there that truly believe that marijuana would solve every problem you've ever had in your life.
I've met those guys. I know who they are.
Yeah. No different than the people who, the tea tree oil, and then it was the coconut oil. Now it's, the marijuana oil. Listen, I think that everything in life naturally created has some sort of properties to it, good or bad. But I do not believe by any stretch of the imagination that there's one cure-all product. So hopefully nobody's listening that feels that way and feels offended by that. But if you do, that's just how I feel. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is.
It's too, yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah. So I did want to talk a little bit about recreational marijuana, though, because that's the thing that we're really looking at here in New York State. Cuomo promised recreational marijuana in the budget. Didn't happen. Now his new promise is June. So being that information is out there, you probably know by now that recreational marijuana is not legal in New York State. Although it's not really enforced in a lot of areas. So I know in the city of Rochester, I think it's a general policy that they don't arrest at all for possession charges of marijuana, unless it's like such a large quantity that, and mixed like with other drugs. So it looks like recreational marijuana may be legal in June, ? But it's probably going to come with some pretty heavy taxes, some pretty heavy regulation. And the way I look at all of these things, I talk with you guys a lot about black markets. I talk with you about how black markets develop, how they progress, what causes them, and then ultimately how I believe we get rid of them. And I think that, a lot of people, they look at the drug market today, and I'll call it the black drug market or the illegal drug market, and they want that to go away. They don't want kids buying drugs on the corner. They don't want kids, going to a drug dealer to get drugs and this whole pile of, medicine cabinet drugs, heroin, cocaine, whatever. Most people, I think, in general, they want to see that go away. So I think a lot of people think that when marijuana becomes legal for recreational purposes, that black market's going to go away. And I would say that's a great idea, but not if we tax and overregulate it. It's not going to happen. Because here's what I do know to be true. I know that there are people that are going to get marijuana regardless. Doesn't matter. They're doing it today.
I think it's going to be most of them.
Yeah.
I think that's going to continue.
Yeah. So you've got your people who will get your marijuana regardless. Then you've got the people who think, you know what, I would try it, or maybe it works a little better than my medicine. Or I met somebody with arthritis and they really want a marijuana cream for their joints. And I'm not familiar with that, but apparently they tried it in another state. It worked really good for them. They hope that they can have it here. Those type of people, I don't think are going to go to the black market for their drugs. They want
you're talking about medical marijuana again, though, right? If they're using an analgesic cream for their hands,
I believe, like they were saying, their elbows, their arthritis in their elbows. Yeah,
it's a topical thing.
Sure.
But that would be Am I missing something?
No, I think because the medical marijuana is so controlled that they just don't qualify for it here. Whereas you go to Colorado, you can just buy it off the shelf, put it on your elbows, you're good to go. My understanding of it. So what I'm getting at, I guess, is that if we want to bite away at the black market, it can't be so overregulated that people can't get it anyways. Otherwise, the black market will continue to thrive. But if we looked at something where it was not so heavily regulated, I think you would actually see the prices become comparable to the black market. If it becomes comparable to the black market, guess what? Dealers aren't fighting turf wars anymore because Walgreens has it now. Walmart has it now. It's really hard when, you've got to push out your competition and now your competition's Walmart, CVS.
Yeah. Basically, you're describing the free market. If the free market swings into action,
yep.
What you're going to find, again, is that the recreational pot, which is sold through the imprimatur of government, is going to get shoved aside.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you prefer? Do you like a public pool or a private pool?
Mm-hmm.
You like a public bathroom or a private bathroom?
Yep.
You want a public pot or do you want to buy private pot?
Yeah, yeah, and that's really why I think is important, especially for say parents. Parents are thinking about if recreational marijuana is made legal in New York State. Oh no, my child is going to get a hold of marijuana, and I can tell you, your kids have already got access to marijuana. But the question is, do you want your kids to get their marijuana from a drug dealer on the corner that might be lacing it with other products to keep them hooked and to keep them coming back?
Jim Wayland.
Or do you want them to have the possibility of getting it from a store or a medical facility where you at least know that's all they're getting is marijuana? Sounds like we've got a caller on the line.
Jim from Wayland. Go ahead, Jim.
Hi, Andrew and Bob. Glad to talk to you. I'd like to weigh in on recreational marijuana. Driving under the influence, or is there such a thing? And if there is, how is it traceable and detectable?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
That's a good question.
That's a great question. This is probably the number one thing that gets brought up when they talk about legalizing recreational marijuana. And so I had to do some research on this because maybe 4 or 5 months ago, I was told that since it's been legalized in Colorado, they've come up with technology that can show you if it's been used within the last 4 hours. So for those of you listening to the show, one of the biggest pushbacks on both sides, the for and the against, is that a common drug test like a hair test and sometimes a blood test, a hair test can show marijuana usage within 30 days. Sometimes 60 in some cases. And a blood test, I forget, they've had it as long as 72 hours, I think, or something like that. So the question has been, when driving under the influence of alcohol, you can do a blood alcohol test, you can do a breathalyzer, and they're mostly accurate, but you can't use it in court. They had to do an actual blood test to be used in court. But you can actually test and get a real number for your blood alcohol content that's verifiable in court. Whereas with THC, the drug in marijuana that makes you high, makes you feel good, everybody metabolizes differently. And so they've really struggled with, a number that would be maybe high or impaired for me, may be twice the dosage of what makes you high or impaired.
Subject to challenge by DWI attorneys.
Exactly.
They will absolutely rip this to shreds in court.
Yep. So in Colorado, they've actually had, I did quite a bit of research on this, and there's way more research to be done, to be honest with you, because there's so much information out there. But I did find a few government websites, including federal government websites, that show that they've actually had the technology since 2014. To actually detect within 4 hours of usage. And in Colorado, they've actually gotten the technology much, much better, much more fine-tuned, but still about a 4-hour window. So what I envision happening with today's technology that will probably change as more states legalize it is that you won't be allowed to operate machinery, drive a vehicle, that sort of thing within 4 hours of use, because that's what they can test for. So they're within that limitation there.
Yeah, but there's another question. There's this unanswered question that's lurking in the background, and that is, does not marijuana that was consumed longer ago than 4 hours still affect your reaction time and your fitness to operate, as you say, heavy machinery, or to drive a bus or a train or an airplane?
Yep. Yeah, and that's a great point. So I would look at how our current alcohol laws work, which is you can have somebody blow well over the limit and be totally functional, still illegal, and you can have people blow way under the limit and they are not functional whatsoever, and by law, if they're not functional, they're still considered impaired. So I think it's going to follow that same law. Even if you're under the limit or you haven't been within those 4 hours but you're still impaired, you're probably still going to be considered impaired. So, all right, guys, we're going to take another break here on Radio Free New York. We'll be back in a moment.
Your business relies on computers and technology to operate. Slow, unreliable networks and servers can cause unplanned downtime and affect your bottom line. The experts at Simple Tech Innovations are here to help. Their preventative maintenance program ensures that your computers and network are kept up to date and monitored for any issues, keeping your business running smoothly. They also help clients achieve HIPAA, PCI, and New York State cybersecurity compliance to keep your network safe and secure. Whatever your business IT needs are, Simple Tech Innovations should be your first call. They've won the best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. Call them today for a free consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. Simple Tech Innovations.
Everyone is talking about residual income as a retirement plan. Do you have a residual income plan in place? If not, come to our free seminar on April 25th in Rochester to learn about local residual income opportunities. Go to startrochester.com to sign up for our free seminar. No experience is necessary. Go to startrochester.com and sign up for our free, no obligation seminar. Space is limited to the first 40 people, so sign up now before it fills up. startrochester.com.
Why do businesses choose to move their website from Wix and Squarespace to Simple Tech Innovations? Maybe it's their excellent customer service or attention to detail. Maybe it's their ability to give a truly customized solution. Or perhaps they just like the fact that Simple Tech is a local small business that builds great relationships with its clients. Whatever the reason may be, you can rest assured knowing that the local team at Simple Tech has your best interest in mind when building or updating your website. They're hands-on and love helping customers achieve their goals. But don't take my word for it. They've won the best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an
Last spot.
Better Business Bureau rating. If your website doesn't match your dreams or isn't achieving your goals, give the professionals at Simple Tech Innovations a call today for a consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. Simple Tech Innovations.
You're listening to Radio Free New York on the WYSL station.
All right, guys, welcome back to Radio Free New York. I'm your host, Andrew Hollister, and just scrolling through here. Todd joined us on Facebook. Todd, thank you so much. I don't know if you were listening earlier, but we gave you a shout out here on the show for coming out to see us and making the drive all the way from Syracuse. So glad you're here. Glad you're listening. Hope your lunch with your daughter was awesome. So we're just talking about marijuana, medical, recreational, talking about a whole bunch of things. And our last caller actually brought up a great point. And the point was, we have a blood alcohol content. We have laws about that. When you're driving, what's impaired, what's not impaired, and how will this all work? Because it's a different type of absorption into the body, if you will. It's a totally different thing. So how do we handle that? And so we started talking about that, and I want to talk about that also in terms of work as well, because part of the reason I decided to do this show is in New York City, they actually created a new law about drug testing, and that's what got me interested in this, is because I read this this law that the New York City City Council passed, and I was like, huh. And people were excited about it. People are upset about it. And I was like, you know what? I need to know a little bit more about this. So the article is from the New York Times that says most employers in New York City will no longer be able to force job applicants to take drug tests for marijuana use under a bill overwhelmingly approved by the City Council. So the city, this drug screening law basically makes it so that if you go to hire somebody and you ask them to take a drug test, that drug test cannot include marijuana use, or you have to ignore the results.
What's the policy behind that, I wonder? What are the policy concerns that's driving that?
So it doesn't really say, but looks like it was passed 40-4. So overwhelmingly, I didn't realize they had that many city council. I guess it makes sense. There's so many people in New York City that makes sense to have such a large city council. To give you guys an idea, City of Rochester, their city council is 9 people, and that's a city of 250,000. So New York City, they got 12 million, 18 million.
City of about 200,000 now, but
New York City?
No, Rochester.
Oh, Rochester. Yeah.
We're pretty close to it. It's like 204 or something.
Yeah. No, you're right. But New York City's got what, 12 million, 18 million?
No, it's about 9 million.
9 million?
Between 8 and 9.
All right, so you got a huge gap there, so it makes sense that there's way more city council members down there. I think that their idea for this is that that marijuana is available medically, and that it appears that it will be available recreationally. So I'm sure they called it a discrimination bill. I'm sure it was an anti-discrimination bill that would essentially make it so employers couldn't discriminate against people based on their daily lives outside of work. I'm sure that's how they framed it. They're very good with their marketing. So that's how I would expect it to be phrase. Actually, Todd comments in. So Todd is actually a part of New York State Corrections, and he actually just commented in saying that they're currently field testing a device that operates like a breathalyzer. So yes, we talked about that a little bit. There is a device available right now that can tell you within 4 hours of use, but also to Bob's point, that doesn't say how high you are or aren't. It just says how recently you've used it. So this isn't to say that that like it's all worked out and it's perfect or anything. There's certainly kinks to overcome. But in terms of driving and in terms of use at work, I think that we can look at how alcohol is enforced, and impaired driving is enforced, and really take a look at just how that is and replicate that. If you show up to work and you're non-functional and it's clear that you're non-functional, it's pretty, you don't have to smell the drunk guy at work to know he's drunk. Right. I think it's fair to be able to do the same thing with an employee who shows up to work possibly high. And I don't think it's inappropriate to say, hey, you're at work, you're punched in, you're not acting right. Why don't you go take a drug test? I think that should be totally fine. I know there are people that says, oh, that's discriminatory. What if they use it after hours? Well,
what's discriminatory about it? It's a public safety issue.
Exactly.
You're not discriminating against them because of your religion or because of the color of your skin. This is about having a safe workplace.
Yeah, and that's exactly what the point is, because you would do that with alcohol, right? If somebody showed up drunk and you could tell they were drunk and you as the employer wanted to prove it, you'd have them take a blood alcohol test. I think you should be able to do the same thing with a drug test in this situation. And I don't think that's discriminatory. I don't think that's anything. I think it's literally a safety issue. And I think that's something that a lot of times I think people overlook with this whole issue in general, is the idea that your employment is between you and your employer. The government is really not supposed to be involved. And however you and your employer establish your contractual agreement for employment should be honored. So if your employer says, by working here, drug tests are mandatory, government should have no say in that. They should not. If your employer doesn't say they're mandatory, that's fine too. But that's between you and your employer. There shouldn't be any government involved. And if your employer wants to test for marijuana use beforehand, good for them. If that's what they want. Maybe their insurance company requires it. There's things involved here that government just shouldn't be touching. So, and vice versa. If they don't want to test for drugs before employment, good for them too. It should really be transparent, and there shouldn't be any extra special treatment or anything like that. Government shouldn't be involved telling you what you can and cannot do. It's a private agreement between you and your employer. If you breach it, you breach it. And vice versa. If your employer breaches the agreement, they get in trouble too, and that's not just drugs. That's what would happen if your employer didn't pay you on time or pay you at all. There would be recourse. There would be a problem there. You guys had an agreement, your labor for their money. So I think that this is, sometimes I think people get really hung up on what it is we're talking about instead of just general policy and principle. We shouldn't necessarily look at things so different. We should be asking the question, should government even be involved in this? Or is it a private agreement between two parties and government shouldn't insert their nose? So that's really how I feel about this New York City law. I think the idea that New York City is going to tell employers what they can and cannot do as a part of their hiring process. And I don't care if it's marijuana. I don't care if it's alcohol. I don't care what it is. I don't think that the government should be telling them what they can and cannot do.
Well, once again, this is the progressive influence where we're trying to take society and societal norms apart brick by brick. So if we make the workplace a dangerous place because this is a slippery slope. Of course, if you can't test anybody with regard to marijuana use, then you can't test anybody with regard to alcohol pretty soon. Mm-hmm. That's the next step. Yep. And pretty soon, running a company, a private company, becomes an unmanageable issue. Mm-hmm. At which point, of course, the big government people are there to step in, and we'll assemble the cars, and we'll make the electronics, and we'll develop the drugs, and it'll all be just so great because, as we all know, government is always run by experts.
Yeah.
And they've got all the answers.
And I've got a story about that. I don't know if I can share it on the air. I'll have to see if my non-disclosure agreement covers this story or not. But on Friday, I may have a story for you guys that we can talk about when government takes over a private entity's job and how inefficient and over budget and how terrible that becomes. Because we recently just saw this where government thought that they were going to do something better than the private sector, and it's turned into just a complete mess.
Yeah, back to medical marijuana too, by the way, for just a moment. It's also important to note here that all county health directors in the state of New York and almost all law enforcement agencies have come out against the legalization of recreational pot.
Interesting.
All of them.
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily surprise me. For a number of reasons. One is law enforcement, definitely, and medical, they see people in their worst times. So that doesn't surprise me at all. And they see more than you or I probably ever will on the worst times part. Absolutely. In general, government, we talk about anything new, they like hitting it with a stick, and not to say that that's our police or our medical directors. But new stuff scares government. Absolutely. And I'm not saying that not with good reason either. But I'm open to both sides, and I would be interested in talking with some of them to see why and hear their point of view. And maybe we could get somebody on the show and they could share that with us. So guys, thank you so much for joining us here on Radio Free New York. I know we didn't talk about hemp at all. Maybe we'll do that next time. Have a good one. I'll talk to you guys on Friday.
Patrick presents up to $13,500 off a new 18 GMC Sierra Double Cab 4x4.